The snow fell gently outside Dale Carter's cabin in the Montana wilderness. He sat by the fireplace, nursing a cup of hot chocolate after a long 12-hour shift at the rural pediatric clinic. At 42, Dale had spent over 20 years caring for the toughest cases, children other nurses couldn't handle, kids with special needs, and babies born with withdrawal symptoms. His talent with difficult children had become something of a legend in medical circles. Dale was about to head to bed when a bright blue light flooded his living room. It came through every window, so intense he had to shield his eyes. The cups in his kitchen cabinet rattled, and the floor beneath his feet trembled. He rushed to the window and saw something impossible, a massive disc-shaped object hovering above the clearing near his cabin. It was at least 100 feet across, with pulsing lights around its rim. As he watched, frozen in place, a beam of light shot down from the center of the craft, and a ramp extended to the ground. "This isn't happening," Dale whispered to himself, but he didn't run. Something about the deliberate, calm way the ship had landed told him this wasn't an attack. A figure appeared at the top of the ramp. Even from a distance, Dale could tell. It was tall, much taller than any human. As it descended, his breath caught in his throat. The visitor stood nearly 8 feet tall, with a body covered in iridescent green scales that shimmered in the ship's lights. Its face was reptilian, with a pronounced snout and yellow eyes with vertical pupils. It wore what looked like armor made of some metallic material Dale couldn't identify. Dale's instincts as a nurse took over. He grabbed his coat and medical bag. Not that he knew what good human medicine would do for an alien, and stepped outside into the cold night. The creature saw him approach and raised a clawed hand in what seemed like a greeting. "You are Dale Carter," the alien said in perfect English, its voice deeper than any human's, but clearly understandable. "I am," Dale replied, his voice steadier than he felt. "And you are?" "I am Ambassador Krell of the Vaxion Dominion. We have been observing your planet for many decades. You specifically for 3 years." Dale felt a chill that had nothing to do with the snow. "Why me?" Krell tilted his massive head. "Because of your work with young ones. Your reputation extends farther than you know." Dale glanced back at his cabin, wondering if he should invite the alien inside, or if that would be a terrible idea. Before he could decide, Krell continued, "My species faces a unique challenge. We are apex predators who have conquered most of our galactic sector. We are warriors, scientists, explorers, but we are poor nurturers." Dale frowned. "I don't understand." "Our young, our hatchlings, are exceptionally vulnerable for the first 3 years of life. They require constant attention and specific care. Our society cannot progress if our adults must devote themselves entirely to childcare. Yet without proper care, many hatchlings do not survive." "That's terrible," Dale said, his nurse's heart immediately concerned. "It is our reality. Through our observations, we have discovered something remarkable about humans. Your species has an extraordinary capacity for nurturing, not just your own young, but any young. Your empathy extends beyond your kind." The wind picked up, sending snowflakes swirling between them. Dale shivered, and Krell noticed. "You are uncomfortable in this temperature. May we continue this conversation in your dwelling?" 20 minutes later, Dale sat across from an 8-foot reptilian alien at his kitchen table. Krell had to hunch to fit under the ceiling, but he seemed unbothered as he explained the Vaxian proposal. "We wish to establish a program where select human caregivers would raise our hatchlings through their vulnerable stage before returning them to their biological parents. In exchange, we offer technology and protection for Earth." Dale's mind raced. Why not use artificial intelligence or robots for this? Krell made a sound that might have been a laugh. "We tried. The hatchlings failed to thrive. They need organic interaction, emotional connection. Things we Vaxians struggle to provide, but that humans excel at naturally. And why me for this test? Case, surely there are more qualified people. Your isolation provides security. Your record with difficult human children suggests adaptability. And most importantly, you have no family ties that would be disrupted. The statement stung, but Dale couldn't deny its truth. After his husband died 5 years ago, he had withdrawn from most social connections. What exactly would I need to do? Dale asked Doc from a compartment in his armor. Krell produced a small holographic projector. It displayed a creature that looked like a miniature version of Krell, but with softer features and larger eyes. This is a Vaxian hatchling named Zex, 6 months old in your time measurement. You would care for Zex for 6 of your months as a trial. If successful, the program would expand. Dale studied the hologram. Despite the alien appearance, he recognized the vulnerability of youth in those large eyes. What happens if I say no? Krell's expression was unreadable. We continue our search. But know that other nations on your planet would compete aggressively for this opportunity once they learn of it. The technological advantages we offer are substantial. Ale thought of the children he had helped over the years, the ones other people had given up on. He thought of his empty house and the long, quiet evenings. When would this start? He asked. Tomorrow, if you agree. Dale looked at the hologram again. His life had fallen into a predictable routine since losing Peter. Maybe it was time for something completely unpredictable. I'll do it, he said, wondering if he had just made the best or worst decision of his life. I'll take care of Zex. Krell's yellow eyes seemed to brighten. Then the arrangement is made. You have the gratitude of the Vaxian Dominion, Dial Carter of Earth. I will return at dawn with Zex and everything you will need. As the alien departed into the snowy night, Dale stood in his doorway, watching the spacecraft rise silently into the clouds. His life, he realized, would never be the same again. 3 weeks had passed since Zex arrived, and Dale was exhausted. The Vaxian hatchling needed attention at all hours. Its scaly body required a precise temperature between 85 and 90 degrees, forcing Dale to keep his cabin uncomfortably warm. The special nutrient paste that Krell had provided smelled like rotten eggs and fish, making Dale gag whenever he had to prepare it. Worst of all, Zex had destroyed half the furniture with its razor-sharp claws. The couch was in tatters, the wooden table had deep gouges, and Dale had gone through 4 sets of bedsheets. He hadn't slept more than 3 hours at a stretch since becoming a caregiver to an alien baby. You're killing me, kid, Dale muttered, as he mixed another batch of the foul-smelling paste. Zex watched him from a specially constructed enclosure in the living room. The hatchling was about the size of a human 3-year-old, but with the proportions of a miniature dinosaur. Its scales had begun to show hints of the iridescent green that adult Vaxions displayed. The large yellow eyes tracked Dale's every move. Dale's phone rang. It was Dr. Susan Wright, the xenobiologist assigned to help him by the newly formed Human-Vaxian Relations Committee. How's it going today? Susan asked. She was in her 50s with short gray hair and the no-nonsense attitude of someone who had spent decades in scientific research before being thrust into the world's most important first contact situation. I'm running on fumes, Susan. Zex tore up another blanket last night and made that awful screeching sound for 2 hours straight. Have you tried adjusting the humidity? The Vaxians gave us data suggesting their hatchlings are sensitive to dry air. Dale sighed. I'll try, but I'm not hopeful. Nothing seems to work for long. Hang in there. The whole world is watching this. Experiment, even if they don't know it yet. The president calls me twice a day for updates. After their call ended, Dale brought the nutrient paste to Zex. The hatchling made a chirping sound that Dale had learned meant excitement or happiness. Despite everything, he found himself smiling. Yeah, you're cute when you want to be," Dale said, carefully placing the bowl within reach of the small alien. He had learned the hard way not to hand-feed Zex after getting a painful nip on. Day 3. While Zex ate, Dale collapsed into his one remaining intact share and closed his eyes. Without meaning to, he started humming an old lullaby his mother had sung to him. It was something he did when stressed, a habit from childhood. The sounds of eating stopped. Dale opened his eyes to find Zex staring at him intently, food forgotten. "What's wrong? Not hungry?" Zex made a new sound, a soft trilling noise. Dale frowned, then continued humming the lullaby. The hatchling's eyes widened, and it moved closer to the edge of its enclosure, head tilted in what seemed like curiosity. Dale began to sing the words softly. "Hush, little baby. Don't say a word. Papa's gonna buy you a mockingbird, ... double quotes ZEX became." Completely still, entranced. When Dale finished the song, the hatchling made a series of sounds that seemed to mimic the melody. "You like music," Dale said with surprise. Who would have thought? Over the next few days, Dale discovered that singing calmed Zex almost instantly. The screeching fits stopped. The destructive clawing decreased. The hatchling began to mimic not just songs, but other human behaviors, attempting to hold utensils, sitting in a chair, though it broke under the weight, and even trying to help clean up its messes. One evening, while Dale was reading a book on child development, his doorbell rang. He wasn't expecting visitors, especially not at his remote cabin. Outside stood a tall woman with blonde hair and a serious expression. "Mr. Carter? I'm Linda Powell from the State Department. May I come in?" Dale hesitated, but let her in. Linda's eyes widened when she saw Zex sitting on the floor, playing with blocks that Dale had bought online. "So it's true," she whispered. "We have an actual alien visitor." "Guest," Dale corrected. "And yes, this is Zex." Linda composed herself. Quickly, "Mr. Carter, I'll be direct. Several nations have learned about your arrangement with the Vaxians. The Chinese have already offered to host 50 hatchlings. The Europeans are forming a joint committee to make their own proposal." "What does that have to do with me?" "The President wants to ensure America maintains its privileged position. We need this trial to succeed. Whatever you need, equipment, specialists, money, just ask." Dale looked at Zex, who was watching the stranger with cautious eyes. "What I need is fewer interruptions and more sleep." Before Linda could respond, a familiar blue light filled the room. Dale rushed to the window. "Not again." He muttered. Another spacecraft hovered above his property. But this one was different, sleeker, with silver markings instead of the Vaxian ship's utilitarian design. A beam of light appeared, and 2 figures descended. They were nothing like the Vaxians. These aliens stood only slightly taller than humans, with slender bodies covered in what looked like short blue fur. Their faces were almost cat-like, with large almond-shaped eyes that glowed softly in the evening light. "Who are they?" Linda asked, her voice tight with tension. "I have no idea," Dale replied. The aliens approached the cabin cautiously. Dale went outside to meet them, with Linda following close behind. "Greetings, human caretaker," one of the aliens said in accented but clear English. "I am Merid of the Meridian Coalition. We have come with urgent information." "About what?" The alien's expression grew serious. "About the Vaxians and the dangerous game you're playing by caring for their young." Dale felt a chill run down his spine. "What do you mean?" "The Vaxians are feared conquerors. They have subjugated 12 systems in the last century alone. No species has ever been trusted to care for their young before." "Then why us?" Dale asked, Merritt glanced at his companion before answering. That is what troubles us most. What makes humans special enough that even the galaxy's most dangerous predators would entrust you with their cubs? Behind them, Zex made a trilling sound from inside the cabin, as if calling for Dale to return. We need to talk, Merritt said gravely, about what the Vaxians might really want from Earth. 1 year had passed, and everything had changed. Dale stood at the window of his office, watching the snow fall on the sprawling complex that had once been just his simple cabin in the woods. Now it was the Montana Interspecies Child Care Facility, home to over 200 alien offspring from 37 different species. Dale had been named the director, though he sometimes missed the days when he only had Zex to worry about. The Vaxian hatchling had grown considerably over the past year, and now stood almost 4 feet tall. Zex's scales had developed their adult iridescent sheen, and the young alien could speak broken English in addition to its native language. Dale. Meeting in 5 minutes, said his assistant, Pete Johnson, poking his head into the office. Thanks, Pete. Is Lisa there yet? Just arrived with the Kragan babies. Dale nodded and gathered his tablet. Lisa Bennett, a former elementary school teacher from Ohio, had become something of a celebrity among several galactic civilizations. Her special talent was handling the temperamental offspring of the Kragans, a warrior species even more aggressive than the Vaxians. The meeting room was filled with an assortment of humans and aliens. Ambassador Krell was there, looking exactly as imposing as the day Dale had first met him. Next to him sat Merritt, the Meridian who had initially come with warnings, but now served as a liaison between Earth and the less militaristic species. Lisa entered last, carrying 2 Kragan infants. They looked like miniature tigers with 6 legs and tiny horns on their heads. Despite their fearsome appearance, they clung to Lisa like human babies would, purring softly against her shoulders. Sorry, I'm late, she said. Grex and Trow didn't want to go to their enclosure. Dale smiled. It's fine. Let's begin. The meeting covered the usual issues: temperature regulation in the various habitat zones, supply chain for the different nutrient formulas, and scheduling for the human caretakers, who now numbered over 500. We have a new development to discuss, Ambassador Krell said when the routine matters were concluded. The first batch of Vaxian youngsters raised by humans, including Zex, will be returning to Vaxian society next month. Dale felt a pang in his chest. Despite all the challenges, he had grown attached to Zex. Are they ready? That remains to be seen, Krell replied. There are concerns among some Vaxian elders that the human influence has made them soft. Soft? Lisa asked, frowning as she gently rocked the Kragon infants. What does that mean? Merritt spoke up. The Vaxians, like the Kragans and several other species here, value aggression and dominance in their culture. There are traditionalists who worry that being raised with human values of empathy and cooperation will make the youngsters less effective in Vaxian society. Dale had heard these concerns before, but they still bothered him. We're not trying to change who they are. We're just caring for them during their vulnerable stage. But you are changing them, said a new voice. At the door stood a tall Kragan. ADULT, its orange and black striped fur. This was Commander Vrock, who had come to observe the facility. Your human emotions and values seep into their developing minds. Lisa tightened her hold on the Kragan infants. And is that such a bad thing? To teach them empathy and kindness alongside strength? It is if it makes them weak. Vrock growled. A weak Kragan is a dead Kragan in our society. The room grew tense. Dale stepped forward, attempting to defuse the situation. Maybe we can learn from each other. Our different approaches might create something better than either of us had alone. After the meeting, Dale found Lessa in the nursery area, singing softly to the Kragan infants as she put them down for a nap. You handled Vrock well, Dale said. Lisa sighed. I worry about them, Dale. What happens when my little ones go back to a society that values fighting above all else? They've learned to share here. They comfort each other when they're sad. Will those be seen as weaknesses? Before Dale could answer, Pete rushed in. Dale, you need to come quickly. Zex is having some kind of episode. Dale hurried to Zex's quarters. The young Vaxion was thrashing around, knocking over furniture with its powerful tail. Zex, what's wrong? Dale called out. The Vaxion turned, yellow eyes wide with distress. Dale, I heard them, the elders. They say I am not true Vaxion anymore. Say I am too human now. Dale approached carefully. Who told you that? Overheard guards talking. Say I cannot go home because I am ruined. Zex's voice broke in a way that sounded remarkably human for a reptilian alien. Say all human-raised are problem. Dale put his hand on Zex's arm, feeling the smooth scales beneath his palm. You're not ruined, Zex. You're just ... different. Maybe that's a good thing. Later that evening, Dale sat with Susan Wright, who had become the chief scientist at the facility. We're discovering something remarkable, Susan said, showing Dale her latest research. Humans possess a unique capacity for nurturing that transcends species boundaries. Our empathy isn't limited to our own kind. Is that so unusual? Dale asked. In the galaxy? Absolutely. Most intelligent species evolved with different priorities. The Vaxians and Kragans evolved from apex predators, focusing on hunting and dominance. Others evolved for technological advancement or abstract thinking. And we evolved to care, Dale mused. Exactly. That's our superpower, as silly as it sounds. And it's changing how these young aliens develop. Their conversation was interrupted when a message came through on Dale's tablet. It was from Ambassador Krill, marked urgent. A delegation of Vaxian traditionalists will arrive tomorrow, the message read. They are demanding the immediate return of all Vaxian hatchlings. They claim the human influence is contaminating our youth and threatening our way of life. Dale looked out the window at the facility that had grown from his small cabin. Lights glowed in dozens of buildings where human caregivers tended to the young of species from across the galaxy. He thought of Zex and all the others who had grown under human care. Something profound was happening here, something that might change the course of galactic politics and culture. And it had all started because humans were good at something the rest of the galaxy's predators struggled with, the simple act of nurturing the young. 5 years had passed since the first alien children arrived on Earth. Dale sat in his office reviewing messages on his tablet. The Montana facility had become just one of dozens across Earth. Nearly every country now hosted alien young from various species, turning the planet into a galactic nursery. Dale opened a private message that had just arrived. It was from Zex, now a junior diplomatic officer in the Vaxian fleet. The message was coded to avoid detection by Vaxian authorities, who frowned upon continued contact between returned youngsters and their human caregivers. Dale, things are changing rapidly here, Zex's message read. Those of us raised by humans are forming connections across species lines. The older generations don't understand. There is talk of stopping the human program permanently. Be careful. We'll send more information when safe. Dale frowned. This wasn't the first warning he had received. Over the past year, several species had begun to question the wisdom of allowing humans to influence their young. What had started as a practical solution to the problem of vulnerable offspring had evolved into something more significant, a cultural exchange that was changing alien societies from within. A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. Lisa Bennett entered, looking tired but excited. I just got back, she said, dropping into a chair. The Kragan High Command finally allowed me to visit my former charges. Dale leaned forward. How was it? Amazing and heartbreaking, Lisa replied. My kids. I still think of them as my kids. They're all grown now. They formed their own community within Kragan society. They call themselves the Nurtured. We've heard that term before, Dale said. Zex mentioned it too. Lisa nodded. It's happening across multiple species. The aliens raised by humans are forming a kind of political movement. They're advocating for peace and cooperation rather than the traditional conquest and dominance. How are they being received? Lisa's expression darkened. Not well in many cases. Some are facing discrimination, even threats. The Kragan elders see them as weak, contaminated by human values. She paused. One of my former charges, Grex, is now a minor official in their military. He told me that. Many traditional Kragans want to end the human program because they see it as a form of cultural warfare. Dale sighed. The Vaxian traditionalists have been saying the same thing. There's more, Lisa said, lowering her voice. When I was preparing to leave, I was detained by Kragan security forces. They questioned me for hours about human influence techniques. They only released me because Grex intervened. Are you saying they see us as a threat now? Some do. They're afraid of what happens when their young return with different values. Combat and conquest are central to Kragan identity. When their young come back talking about cooperation and empathy, Dale's tablet chimed with another message. This one was from Susan Wright, who was now Earth's chief xenobiologist and had been traveling between alien worlds studying the impact of human caregiving. Emergency meeting required, the message read. Multiple species discussing intervention against Earth. The Nurtured are our only allies out there. Later that day, Dale, Lisa, and other facility leaders gathered in the secure conference room. Susan's hologram flickered in the center of the table. She was broadcasting from a Meridian vessel somewhere near the edge of the solar system. The situation is worse than we thought, Susan said. I've been monitoring communications between several species. A coalition led by Kragan hardliners and Vaxian traditionalists is forming. They're framing human influence as an existential threat to their cultures. What kind of intervention are they discussing? Dale asked. Susan's expression was grim. Worst case scenario. They're debating whether Earth should be quarantined or what? Lisa pressed. Or neutralized entirely. A heavy silence fell over the room. The only thing preventing immediate action, Susan continued, is the intervention of the Nurtured. They've formed their own coalition to protect Earth. Many hold influential positions now, but they're outnumbered. Dal thought of Zex and the hundreds of other aliens he had helped raise. So the galaxy is dividing into two camps, those who see human nurturing as a threat and those who've benefited from it. Exactly, Susan said. And Earth is caught in the middle of what could become a galactic civil war. After the meeting, Dale returned to his original cabin, which he had preserved within the expanded facility. It was his private retreat, a reminder of where everything had started. He sat on the porch, watching the sunset, thinking about the incredible journey of the past 5 years. His tablet chimed again. Another message from Zex had arrived. Situation critical. Multiple fleets converging on Sol system. The Nurtured are mobilizing to protect Earth, but we need more time. Humans must prove their value to the galaxy, beyond just raising young. You taught us more than just how to survive our vulnerable stage. You taught us how to care. Now we must show the galaxy that this is not weakness, but strength. Dale read the message twice, his heart racing. He thought about what Susan had said about humans evolving differently from the predatory species that dominated the galaxy. Their unique capacity for nurturing had seemed like a simple biological difference, but now it was the center of a galactic ideological conflict. His communicator beeped. It was Pete Johnson, sounding panicked. Dale, you need to get back to the main building now. Our deep space monitors just lit up. There are hundreds of alien ships entering the solar system. Some are nurtured vessels coming to protect us, but many more are. Pete's voice faltered. Many more are coming to end the human experiment for good. Dale looked up at the darkening sky. Somewhere up there, a battle line was forming. Half the galaxy saw humans as a threat because they had taught alien children to care for others. The other half was willing to fight to protect the world that had shown them a different way to live. The stars began to appear overhead, and Dale wondered how many off them now held beings who had once been human care, and how many held those who feared what that care had created. The sky above Earth was filled with alien ships. Hundreds of vessels from dozens of species formed two distinct groups. On one side were the traditionalists, Vaxians, Kragans, and others who viewed human influence as a threat to their way of life. On the other side were the ships commanded by the nurtured, those who had been raised by humans, and now stood ready to defend the planet that had cared for them. Dale stood in the control room of the Montana facility, watching the satellite feed with Lisa, Susan, and other human leaders. The President of the United States and other world leaders were connected via video link. "They're hailing us," said the communications officer. The main screen flickered to life. Commander Vrock of the Kragans appeared, his orange and black striped, face twisted in a snarl. "People of Earth, your interference in galactic culture ends today. You will cease all care programs immediately and surrender all alien young currently on your planet." Before anyone could respond, a second transmission cut in. It was Zex, now taller and more imposing than when Dale had first cared for him as a hatchling. "This is Acting Ambassador Zex of the Vaxian Reformist Movement. Earth is under our protection. Any hostile action will be met with force." The President looked to Dale. "What are our options?" Dale thought quickly. "We need to buy time. The more they talk, the better chance we have of avoiding conflict." Dale stepped forward. "This is Dale Carter, Director of Earth's Interspecies Care Program. We propose a neutral meeting to discuss terms. There's no need for violence." After tense negotiations, both sides agreed to send representatives to a neutral station positioned between the two fleets. Dale, Susan, and Lisa were chosen to represent Earth, along with several world leaders. They boarded a small shuttle escorted by ships commanded by former charges from the care program. The neutral station was a massive ring-shaped structure. Inside, representatives from over 20 species gathered in a large chamber. The tension was palpable as traditional leaders faced off against their human-raised counterparts. High General Krav of the Vaxian Empire spoke first. "For generations, we have built our society on strength and conquest. Now our young return from Earth, speaking of peace and cooperation. This undermines everything we stand for." "Maybe what you stand for needs to change," Zex replied, standing tall beside Dale. "The galaxy doesn't need more conquest. It needs balance." The debate continued for hours. Some species threatened war, while others advocated for compromise. Through it all, Dale observed the fundamental divide, those raised with human values versus those who saw those values as weakness. During a break in the proceedings, Susan approached Dale with excitement in her eyes. "I've been analyzing the biological data from all participating species," she whispered. "There's a pattern I never noticed before." Dale followed her to a small room where she had set up her equipment. "What did you find?" "Every intelligent spacefaring race in this meeting evolved from apex predators," Susan explained, showing Dale the comparative genetic analyses. Their biological history made nurturing young difficult for them. Their instincts were geared toward competition and survival, not care and empathy. "And humans?" Dale asked. "We evolved from social primates. We developed exceptional nurturing capabilities that these predatory species never could. This isn't cultural imperialism. It's us filling an evolutionary gap that allows these species to thrive in new ways. Dale's eyes widened. That's it. That's what we need to show them. When the meeting resumed, Dale requested permission to speak. The alien representatives fell silent as he stepped forward. For years, we've been asking the wrong question, Dale began. We've been asking whether human influence is good or bad for your cultures. But the real question is, why did you bring your young to us in the first place? Dale gestured to Susan, who displayed her findings on the main screen. Every species in this room evolved from predators. Your evolutionary history gave you strength, intelligence, and drive, but it also left a gap. The same instincts that made you successful hunters made it harder for you to nurture your vulnerable young. Murmurs spread through the alien representatives. As Dale continued, humans evolved differently. We became successful not through individual strength, but through cooperation and care. That's why your young thrive with us. We're not replacing your values. We're complementing them with something your biology made difficult. The room grew quiet as Dale's words sank in. Then, from the back of the chamber, a Kragan commander stood. It was Grex, one of Lisa's former charges. The human speaks truth, Grex said. I returned to my people expecting to be a warrior like my ancestors. Instead, I found I could be both strong and compassionate. This is not weakness. It is evolution. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the station. A communication officer rushed in. The traditionalist fleet is moving into attack position. They're targeting Earth. On the main screen, they watched as a Kragan battleship moved ahead of the others, weapons powering up. But then something unexpected happened. The ship's weapons powered down. This is Lieutenant Kraz of the Kragan battleship Vengeance, came a transmission. I was raised by humans for the first 3 years of my life. I will not fire on the planet that nurtured me. I refuse this order. Similar scenes played out across the traditionalist fleet as officers and crew who had once been in human care refused to attack Earth. The command structure began to fracture as more and more ships stood down dot in the conference room. A tide began to turn. Even some of the traditionalist leaders recognized that force would not resolve this situation. Perhaps, said High General Krav reluctantly, there is room for both approaches in our society. 3 days later, Dale stood again on the porch of his original cabin, watching as Zex and Lisa approached. Behind them came Grex and representatives from a dozen other species. It's done, Zex said. The nurturing accord has been signed. Earth is recognized as having a unique and valuable role in galactic society. What does that mean exactly? Dale asked. Lisa smiled. It means we keep doing what we've been doing, caring for their young. But now it's seen not as contamination, but as complementary to their own strengths. Dale looked up at the evening sky where the fleets were beginning to disperse. Some would stay to protect Earth. Others would return to spread the word of the new understanding. The galaxy needed both, Dale said softly. The drive and ambition of predator species and the nurturing capabilities of humans. Grex nodded his striped head. That is why even the galaxy's fiercest predators leave their cubs with humans. You teach us something we could never learn on our own: how to care.